Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the hottest new game show, Riddles in the Dark. The game show where you can become the wealthiest person to ever live if you answer my riddles correctly. If you fail, you'll be thrown into a raging fire with the power of 1,000 suns. Hee hee, oh, Simone. Just kidding, you'll go home poor. I'm your host, Jacko Maxon, and we have a great show in store for you. Our first contestant's name is Steven. Welcome to the show, Steven. Are you ready to answer my questions and riddles in the dark?
Hi. Yeah, happy to be here. And yeah, I think so.
All right, here's the first riddle. What kind of bank has nothing but water in it?
The answer to this riddle is a snowbank.
What in the hee-hee? Who are you?
I'm Mansa Musa. I answered the riddle. Get this peasant, Stephen, out of here. I'm your new contestant.
Sorry, but Steven is our contestant. Steven, here's the next riddle. What goes further, the slower it goes?
Money. Next riddle.
Yes, actually. Sorry, Steven. We'll credit that guess to you. Next riddle. What 5-letter word has only one left when 2 letters are removed?
This is easy. Money. The answer is money. Next question.
Sometimes I stink, sometimes I'm dirty, yet everybody wants me.
Money. Next.
What has 2 banks but no money?
A riverbank. Next.
I can be harder than a rock.
Money.
People need me.
Money.
What is the meaning of life?
Money.
Stop! We're not doing this. Steven, this is the last question. This is going to make you the wealthiest person who has ever lived if you answer it correctly. Mansa Musa, do not answer this riddle. Whoever makes it, tells it not. Whoever takes it, knows it not. Whoever knows it, wants it not.
Is the answer counterfeit money?
Yay! Oh, hee. You did it! You are now the wealthiest person alive. You win!
Stephen went on to live a wonderful life. He had plenty of kids. He was happy. He was wealthy, but not as wealthy as his friend from the show, Mansa Musa, the wealthiest man you've likely never heard of.
Welcome to the History Out of the Box podcast. I am your friendly, unshaven, suave Cam, and with me I have my wonderful Barney.
Oh, he's making fun of the color of my outfit. I'm Jen, everyone. Hey, welcome back. Yeah, feeling good?
I am. Yeah, I am.
You're unshaven.
I'm unshaven. I look scruffy.
You know, I've got I like to call it the unkept hairdo going on right now. Mm-hmm. We're doing good, I think.
You're bringing me back to my childhood with the coloration. I like it.
You like the color?
The color of royalty. It's appropriate for who we're talking about today.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to wear purple.
Wow. Very, 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 very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
I thought this one through.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Thank you so much.
Now, just a quick heads up for our listeners. If you happen to like our content, you can find our content on Instagram at History Out of the Box. You can also find our content on YouTube, hence... If you're watching on YouTube, you can find our content there at History Out of the Box. Now, we have been away for quite a little bit. Just a little background behind that. Not going to get too in-depth, not going to get too sad. There was a family member of mine who passed away over the last month. So took a little bit of a break. Then we got wrapped up in other projects and things, and we've been absolutely busy. But with that being said, with all the sadness aside, with that being said, we have quite a wonderful lineup of characters coming your way very shortly in this history-esque pipeline. So
we do.
Keep an eye out.
We're really excited. We have some really exciting people we're going to talk about shortly. Some that you may have had on your mind because there's been some movies coming out that are going to be all about these people, and we're excited. But also, yes, we wanted to jump right back in with a very interesting person in history. And actually, this is someone who I heard about in a reel clip that was about 2 seconds long. Someone mentioned it in a podcast, and I don't think the podcast had anything to do with history in particular. It was more of an economic comment where someone mentioned that this man was the richest person who ever lived. And I thought, I have never heard of this person before. So I thought it would be a really interesting person to talk about. Yeah. And this is a really cool story.
Interestingly, to your point, we aren't exactly only a history podcast either. So if you find yourself looking for something that's a little bit different, a little bit more interesting, we happen to focus on the characters within history, as Jen, aka Barney, would say, the good, the bad, and the ugly of them, because we feel history is kind of
sometimes it's the
gold washed.
Gold washed. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, can't say whitewashed because that's
well. I mean, depends on what history
we're
book you're
talking
looking
about,
at these
yeah.
days. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely someone I had never heard about before. And I think it's definitely very interesting because we're going all the way back into 14th century West Africa. And again, like I said, I heard about this person being told as someone who bankrupted Egypt at this time. And I was like, who is this person? Who is this person?
Elon Musk.
We are talking today about Elon Musk. No. He's from South Africa, actually.
That's
So
close
pretty
enough,
far
okay.
away, pretty far away. That is far, far away from what we're talking about. But today we are going to be diving into the life of what's known, at least, about Mansa Musa.
The richest man you've never heard of.
That's right, of the Mali Empire, 14th century. And he was a famous ruler, one of the wealthiest, most powerful empires in Africa during the medieval period, by the way. Again, unfortunate. I had never, at least I don't remember learning anything about the Mali Empire, at least in great detail. Do you? Have you ever?
I remember learning about it very briefly. It was like very, 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 very briefly touched on in world history, but that is because I was in AP world history. Because
Oh, good for you.
I was smart. Just kidding. I just got lucky.
I don't remember.
It's all
That was a
luck.
long time ago these days. But as described on an atlas in 1375, this king is the richest and noblest of all of these lands due to an abundance of gold that is extracted from his lands. And he was a towering figure who led an indelible mark on the history of West Africa. The ruler of the Mali Empire presided over a period of great prosperity and cultural flourishing at that time. It was a legacy that continues to inspire and captivate people from around the world to this day, although they may not know exactly who inspired some of the things that they really care about. So we are going to dive into the fascinating story of Mansa Musa and to uncover many layers of his remarkable life and legacy. Isn't that nice? I just wanted
It
to
is nice.
just do something really
Well,
nice to set.
I feel like
set
this
the
could be
groundwork.
like a action movie over the summer.
Honestly, this would be a really, really cool movie.
The wealthiest.
I feel like I say that every time we talk about anyone.
Yeah.
And again, we're not historians. We're kind of just, we didn't know, so we looked it up and thought we'd share it with the world. But every time I'm like, wow.
Well, you have to question.
story.
You have to really question about how wealthy like these people really were, because you have to look at the disparity, at least fiscally. And this is me putting on my figurative glasses. You have to look at the disparity of wealth compared to that time in comparison to today. Because you can't really track it accurately.
We'll crunch some numbers to what some historians can assume equivalates in today's money. And it's pretty staggering. Very staggering.
I mean, how many hoverboards did he have?
Well, I mean, you never know. This was during the medieval times. There was, a lot of lost
Did he have a Bugatti
manuscripts.
Veyron?
Maybe we lost the blueprints to the hoverboard and we're just now getting it back.
Well, let's jump into it. Let's see what his young life was about.
Born in 1280 CE or AD, things are changing these days. Again, my 90s Southern California education, it's AD is what I know.
After Def Leppard, yeah.
Yes, right. Mansa Musa's personal name is Musa or Musa. I've heard it said different ways, so I sort of just say Musa because that's my
fine.
English pronunciation.
That's fine.
But it is the Arabic form of what you and I may traditionally know as Moses.
What? Moses? The Moses? No, I'm just kidding.
Mansa is the title of king in the Mali Empire. So that's how he's known as Mansa Musa. So technically his name is Musa. There is unfortunately very little known about his childhood. However, it is believed that he was a member of the Keita dynasty, which ruled the Mali Empire for several generations. According to legend, the founder of that dynasty was a prince named Sundiata Keita, who overthrew the ruling king of the Sosso Empire and established the Mali Empire in the 13th century. And Mansa Musa was said to be a descendant of that person and their son, Uli I. Mansa Musa, again, his actual name is Musa. Mansa is just a title. I just generally
Like
say
Tsar.
Mansa Musa. Yes, or Sultan or something like that. He was like
your Highness.
Your Highness, yes. Your liege or my liege? I don't know.
I don't know how those is that possessive?
I don't know. He was likely educated in Islamic faith and culture, as Islam was already spread to West Africa by this point. And he was already probably receiving training from a very early age in martial arts, other skills necessary for a future ruler. And despite the lack of detailed information about his childhood, he later had so many of these incredible accomplishments, it's suggesting that he likely had a very good education and was trained to be a strong and capable leader.
Yeah, people were pretty smart back then, believe it or not.
Yes, I know. It's so crazy how we think, oh, we've evolved so much, but sometimes you read about history and you're like, wow, maybe we got stupider. We may have gotten a little stupid.
Maybe a little bit. I mean,
or better,
Monty Python,
depends.
the whole scene from Monty Python, The Holy Grail, where they're like talking about the witch and like she weighs in relation to the duck and she sinks, she's a witch. Like that, I was maybe accurate of the Dark Ages, but if that even existed, who knows?
For another time.
There's for another time. But with that being said, I think people were pretty intelligent back then.
Extremely.
Yeah.
But let's take a minute to actually jump into a little bit of a description of what 14th century Mali Empire was like. The Mali Empire was a vast West African kingdom that flourished from the 13th through the 16th century.
Wast.
Sorry.
Wast, bro.
Excuse me. West African kingdom that flourished between that time period. 13th to the 16th century.
Oh my
gosh, word
Hi,
salad.
I'm Jen, and we're going to be focusing on its peak in the 14th century.
Thank you. We're going to be
focusing on its peak in the 14th century. The
region of the Mali Empire during this period was a very diverse and culturally rich area that encompassed parts of present-day Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Niger, and the Burkina Faso. These are all countries that you would probably recognize today in West Africa. And it was deeply influenced by the Islamic faith. Like I said, the Mali Empire was also home to a rich tradition of oral history and storytelling, with praise singers playing a very important role in actually preserving history at the time. So a lot of this information came through that.
Were they called griots?
Griots. That is a better, yes.
That is
a more
something
traditional
that
way
I
to call
pulled
them.
from my brain and not any notes nearby me.
Griots were highly respected figures who are responsible for recounting and telling the exploits of these rulers and important people, as well as singing and playing music at important ceremonies, because music has transcended time. Everyone loves a good
Wait,
song.
so they're like Dandelion from The Witcher 3?
I knew you
Is
were...
that what they're like?
Well,
kind of, in like a less
well,
caricature
sure.
way?
Well, yeah, there was just, people, I think that's throughout history and all sorts of different cultures that they would have like song, and that was a way of sharing the lives of their rulers.
Yeah, rip Geralt and Henry Cavill.
Oh, boy.
Well, Henry Cavill's still alive, but his character Geralt.
I know. Oh, don't even get me started.
It's travesty. It's
It
absolute
is.
travesty.
It is. Now, in the Mali Empire, slaves were generally acquired. Oh, see, I am all over the place.
In terms of economy, the
Yeah.
Mali Empire was a major center of trade and commerce.
Yes, thank you. It was known for its production and trade of gold, salt, ivory, other valuable goods. And in terms of a social structure, the Mali Empire was a hierarchical society.
Hierarchical?
Thank you. That is a mouthful. The ruling class was at the top, followed by the
Aristocracy?
Yes, and the merchants, and then the common people, and slavery was also practiced in the empire, although it was not as pervasive, maybe, as in some other African societies. Not to say slavery isn't pervasive just on its face in general, but there were limitations. Yeah, do I have to clarify that? I'm sorry.
Non-pervasive slavery.
Yeah, there were limitations and restrictions placed on the treatment of slaves in the Mali Empire. Generally, they were acquired in like warfare, raids on neighboring kingdoms, communities, and through trade with other African societies in the Arab world. But slaves were often used in labor for households, farms, mines. Okay, so this sounds pretty traditional. Soldiers, to go fight someone else's
Basically,
war.
the ruling class taking one segment of society that is not as entitled as they are, and then forcing them to do something against their will, and then holding a carrot in front of them. And if they reach the carrot eventually, even though they never will because it's tied to their back and it's a little too far away from their face, they'll be able to have freedom. That is basically what it is, and it has been in every single culture from the beginning of time.
Well, historian
Since
Michael
beginning of time.
Gomez, he actually estimates that the Mali Empire captured approximately 6,000 people as slaves per year. However, slaves in the Mali Empire were not considered to be property in the same way as in some other societies. They were protected under certain rights. It was illegal to kill or maim a slave, and they were entitled to some degree of protection from their owners.
Well, I have a question there. Was it illegal to kill or maim a slave if you did not own them? Or was it illegal to kill or maim them if you owned them?
I don't know. The thing is,
I
slavery
don't
is just
feel like
ugly,
it's just-
and I didn't look at the details that you're asking, so you've put me in a bit of a bind.
Again,
But
questions that I have no answers to.
There were opportunities for slaves to gain their freedom through showing exceptional loyalty or great
warfare.
battle efforts, you know.
Warfare in the gladiator arena.
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius.
This was interesting. It seems that they were even possibly able to purchase their own freedom through an accumulation of wealth, through an assistance of like charitable organizations. So there were ways to get out, but it's just an ugly thing that was there.
Genuinely though, if we ever get the chance to like go back in time, I would love to be able to actually see how many people were able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have to imagine it wasn't a lot.
You would hope
It's kind of like
that it was a lot,
It's
but
kind of like really like high levels of like
you're
debt.
like, is this the exception or the rule? Like, how many people were actually
Are you ever
going to
be able
this?
to get out of like 300, 500, 400, 600, $1 million of debt? Probably not, but you know.
Well, it's not really debt. It's just
Yeah,
sort
but
of like
it's kind of the same
my
principle. Technically, the only difference is the bank owns you, and they're not going to like force you to not like stay in your home unless they steal your home.
right. But that's just a
Thievery.
general output of what was kind of because we're going to play in. There's the slaves are involved.
So
in
slaves
the story.
existed.
Yes, okay.
Mansa Musa, what happened? How did he become the OG of the Mali Empire?
In 1312, Musa inherited the throne from his predecessor, Mansa Muhammad ibn Q. Okay, I think that's how you pronounce it. We're going to call him Mansa Muhammad. Again, his first name. He became the 9th Mansa of the Mali Empire. He would have been in his early 20s at the time, Musa. Now, Mansa Muhammad has a rather interesting history as well. And when I read about this, I was like, I kind of have to mention just a brief thing about him because he is believed to have disappeared during a voyage across the Atlantic Ocean due to a historical record of what Mansa Musa actually told Egyptian officials down the road.
Oh.
And so I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but this is what Musa said happened to his predecessor.
Did anyone else
Well,
verify this?
I mean, it's kind of iffy. It's a very strange
Long time ago.
story.
Long time
Yeah,
ago.
it's a strange story. Which, by the way, there's some contextual clues whether the name is Muhammad or not, the eighth Mansa, but that it must be because anyway, there's just a lot of game of telephone here. But according to historical accounts, Mansa Muhammad embarked on an expedition across the Atlantic Ocean in 1311 with a large fleet of ships, 2,000 ships. And he had built this specifically for this purpose. The reasons for that expedition are unclear, but some historians actually speculate that he may have been seeking to establish trade with the Americas. Or
to reach the ice wall.
Or to explore new territories. Yes. Now, it's said that Mansa Muhammad never returned from this expedition, and his fate remains a mystery to this day.
Yeah.
2,000 ships?
1310 CE?
Oh, well, yeah. Now, some accounts do suggest that his ships were caught in a storm, drowned at sea.
That's fair.
That is fair. Others claim that he reached the Americas and actually established a new kingdom there. Oh, I don't know. There's no conclusive evidence at all for either of those. But Mansa Muhammad's disappearance actually still remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of African history. And some reports refer to this individual actually, like I said, being Abu Bakr II. But there was no Mansa of the Mali Empire by that name, so it must have been Muhammad. So if you do want to look this up and read about it, it may say Abu Bakr II or Muhammad.
Which we might cover in a future episode.
But it's just interesting to consider, like, a fleet of 2,000 ships went missing, crossing the Atlantic to possibly connect to the Americas in 1311. Sailed the ocean blue. Indeed.
Flight MH370 disappeared
Okay.
somewhere in the South Indian Ocean, and we're not really sure how it got there.
Here's
and
the thing. Here's the thing, though.
Come on, Ocean's a big place.
There's some conspiracy involved in here because it's also worth mentioning that some historians actually discount this story entirely. Well, some suggest that it was actually a story made by Mansa
Might have
Musa
been.
as an explanation as to why he took the crown, took over.
But again, I guess like it's a long time ago, 1311, 1310, 1311.
Well, it's just hard because it's like
I mean-
historians say it happened, historians say it didn't. Some have thrown credence on this voyage actually taking place, and some say it's unclear if it was ever happened in the first place or if it was successful at all. So it's just like this big mystery.
Look,
and
if-
we may never know, right?
If we
may
don't
never
know where Atlantis is right now, we're likely not going to know where these ships went. Okay.
they're all in the same place.
Probably.
Bottom line is Musa became Mansa. Okay.
Yeah.
Mansa Musa. Yeah. And upon his ascension, he began to expand the Mali Empire by conquering neighboring territories, establishing a strong military, all the same stuff you hear all the
through
time.
murder and violence, yes.
Oh, well, that's what every ruler in history has ever done.
Yep.
So he consolidated control over important trade routes as well, because this trans-Saharan trade route was a huge deal at the time. West Africa, the Mediterranean world, bastion of goods
And wealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was also known for his patronage of the arts, and it's also said that he had supported many artists and musicians and writers during his reign. So he was, very into that.
He's like Napoleon.
Yeah, maybe he had some. I don't know. Well,
You can't have a complex. You can't have a tall complex.
no, I was going to say.
Okay?
Well, here's the thing. Also, I was literally about to roll into what I was going to say. You mentioned Napoleon, but it's often described that Mansa Musa was very tall, regal, dignified, commanding presence, believed to have stood at least 6 feet tall, considered quite tall for the time he lived. And he was known for his physical strength, his athleticism. Being of African descent, he likely had dark skin, coarse hair. He was a devout Muslim who wore traditional Muslim clothing, which typically included a long robe, a turban. And he was known for his love of gold. He would often wear gold jewelry, carry a gold scepter, and overall, a very striking guy with regal demeanor, and it would make him stand out in a crowd. Obviously, very powerful, dominant, influential.
He was heads and shoulders above all the rest.
That's right. There you go. Way to summarize it all. He also had a wife, and we're going to talk about her once and never again. Her name was Inari.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Side piece.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I don't know about you. I've done
Well,
so many flubs of words. Do we need a break?
We've listed this. So we've gone over the traditional things. Okay. He's tall. He's regal. He's suave. He's strong. He loves murder. He's wealthy.
And the arts. He loves the arts.
Okay, I'm getting the vibe here, dude. He's just like all the powerful leaders that we've talked about. So what changes? And we'll answer that after the commercial break. And it has been exactly 5.5 seconds. We just sat here in silence and then decided to start talking again. We're back. We're talking about Mansa Musa, the greatest Mansa of the Mali Empire, and I don't know if that's true, but I'm gonna stick by it.
I'm gonna agree with you there. We did, like you said, talked about all the kind of background information to sort of understand the time period in which this man lived. But the main big story of his life is what we're going to launch into next. Sort of the thing that got me interested in reading and learning a bit about him was what this whole pilgrimage to Mecca. That's this big part of his life. And Mansa Musa was most famous for this. It's actually called a Hajj, or I'm going to just call it pilgrimage. It's still today. Same thing. Muslims do this. So he did a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. And this journey would span for him 2,700 miles.
Wow.
And there was no, he didn't have his Amex points to get first class ticket.
I mean, they had
He
Uber back then, so
right.
he would just
now,
hop in the Prius.
Mecca, for those who aren't aware, is a city located in the western region of Saudi Arabia, and it's considered the holiest city in Islam. It's the birthplace of the Prophet Muhammad, who founded Islam in the 7th century, and it is also the site of the Kaaba, which is a cube-shaped structure. You've probably seen photos of it before. It's a very famous structure. Muslims believe it was built by you and I probably commonly know as Abraham, or the Prophet Abraham in Islam. It's the most sacred site. Ibrahim, excuse me. The most sacred site in Islam. Muslims around the world actually face towards the Kaaba during daily prayers, and this pilgrimage to Mecca is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. I'm not going to list all the pillars, but it's one of the things that is basic acts of worship that are required by Muslims all around the world. So every year, millions of Muslims will actually go to Mecca.
It's like getting baptized.
Yes, it's a big deal. So, and Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca actually began in 1324, and it was one of the most significant events of his reign. He set out from the Mali capital of Niani with a huge amount of soldiers, officials, merchants, and slaves, as well as a vast array of gold, which, like I said, will cause problems down the road for some neighboring nations.
I'd love to know
how
they carried that. They just like split it up into multiple camels or horses or
chariots. Here's the thing. He didn't intend to keep it with him the whole time. He actually brought the gold specifically to give it away. He wanted to fund his journey because, you got to buy things. You got to, get your food and get your cloth.
Food and cloth.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of travel.
But he wanted to give gifts. And this caravan was actually estimated to be around 60,000 people, including 12,000 slaves who carried bags of gold, gold dust, bars, currency at the time. And they would all be wearing Persian silk, carrying gold staffs. They just probably looked super badass. But Mansa Musa also brought with him many camels, horses. They carried the food, the water, all the supplies on the long journey across the Sahara Desert, which is a long stretch of nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, approximately 18 tons of gold were taken on this pilgrimage, which would translate to about $957 million in 2022. So about $1 billion in 2023.
That guy had some serious cojones.
Yeah.
Or as the real ones say, cajones. And honestly, dude, 18 tons of gold across the Saharan Desert.
Hot.
No.
Hot.
No.
But
why?
you know what this reminds me of?
Well, I know why, but
And I feel like this can be an honest comparison because it's a fictional kingdom and a fictional place. But
Yo, be careful.
Disney's Aladdin.
okay, why?
No, it just reminds me of when they turn Aladdin, the genie turns Aladdin into this Sultan, fake Sultan from
that
a
song
place.
go?
Prince Ali.
No, the very
fabulously.
beginning one.
Oh, I come from a land and a
yes,
far
that
away
one.
place. Yeah, okay.
That's a great song.
Anyway, I'm just imagining it's a fake kingdom in a Disney movie.
Well, I also have trauma now because you brought up Disney.
Sorry, I'll try not to do that again.
I've learned that Walt Disney is a distant relative of mine. It's ruined my life.
Oh, please.
My life is ruined.
Now, as they journeyed across the desert, Mansa Musa's entourage actually encountered many challenges. It wasn't easy, obviously. Sandstorms, extreme temperatures, attacked by bandits.
Yeah.
All the usual, but they were well organized, they were well provisioned, and they actually managed to overcome most of these along the way.
They
It
had
was a good old
60,000
time.
people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few of
They
them.
were doing good.
Yeah, there's a few that they could afford to lose, okay? I
that's
mean,
true.
how many bandits are going to take on a group of 60,000? It's a full, that's what Chargers fans don't experience, a full stadium of people, you know? that's incredible. I don't know.
Oh, if only.
Yeah, they're about like 15, 20,000.
We're allowed to say that. We're from San Diego. They left us a long time ago. But along the route, the entourage was stopped. They stopped themselves.
They were
and-
stopped by many cities
The
and
police
towns.
pulled them over and said, "What are you doing?" No, they stopped in many cities and towns, and they were greeted by local rulers and officials. And Mansa Musa was known for his generosity. Okay. He distributed large amounts of gold to the people he met along the way, including the poor and needy. He wasn't just giving it out to the rulers.
The rich and wealthy?
No.
The rich and the wealthy and needless?
Yeah, no. He literally would give it to the poor and needy. Just give it away. And Mansa Musa's wealth was legendary. He gave away so much gold, it's actually said that he caused inflation in the cities he passed through. Which is, again, this is where I heard about him from that Reels podcast.
Wait a second. You mean if you give people a lot of money all at once, it causes inflation?
Unfortunately,
What?
Rule of economics.
That's how that works?
But some have referred to him in pop culture as the wealthiest person in history, right? Like I said in the beginning, but his actual wealth is not quite known with complete certainty because the Mali Empire did boast a significant amount of gold and salt deposits, and they dominated in slave and ivory trade, which again, good, bad, and ugly. We said we talk about it. That will certainly help with a lot of money.
You gotta wonder how much they had in like actual liquid. No, but like
What's your
How much
liquid wealth?
liquid gold do you have, guys, as opposed to like hardened bars?
no, but like you gotta wonder how much they actually had because I mean, dude, 18 tons of gold.
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
what do you even? If he's given it away that much, one, it could have been intentional. He could have been a saboteur of all the local economies. That could have been an intentional
Oh,
thing.
you think he was playing a chess game with
maybe
local?
and then take over those economies because they collapsed. Maybe, but
Maybe he was just a nice guy.
he murdered people and conquered.
I
things.
didn't. I mean,
so
so he murdered people himself.
conquer. Come on, he
But
was a
did he
skilled
do
martial
it?
artist.
Maybe
he went
just,
to battle.
Maybe he just slapped him over the, slapped
did
him over the
whole
head and said, "Don't do
Napoleon
that."
Dynamite speed
Yeah.
test.
He's like, I don't actually carry
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Whenever I meet an enemy, I just cuddle him to sleep.
right.
No, he obviously was a dangerous person. But with that being said, like, it is interesting to think, like, I can't even imagine 18 tons of gold. Like,
Yeah.
it would definitely fill up this room. It would definitely fill up this house.
I would fill up this room. I
honestly.
think.
Like, I mean, 2 tons
It's a lot of gold.
is an elephant.
Well, as they approached Mecca, this giant caravan of 60, what was it? What did I say? It was
60,000.
60,000 people.
A full stadium of football fans.
Yes.
Something the Chargers will never see.
Oh my gosh. Musa and his entourage were met by the ruler of Egypt. This was Mamluk Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad. I think I did that name justice. I hope so. Who would soon provide them with an escort that helped them actually cross the Red Sea. They had arrived in Cairo in July of 1324.
And they left in 1310? Is
13
that what?
No.
Okay,
no,
gotcha. Oh, sorry.
I was like, did I say that? Because that's not right.
Yeah, no, start over. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
No.
1324.
Same year.
July, 1324.
They arrived in Cairo in July of 1324. Again, July. Egypt. Sahara Desert. They camped out next to the pyramids of Giza, which was probably,
those were still
quite cool.
Covered in gold or ivory.
Actually, I don't think they were in 1324. No. But they then crossed the Nile River into the city July 19th. And the meeting between Mansa and the Sultan... the Mansa, excuse me. His name's not Mansa. The Mansa Musa and the Sultan was at first very strained because I thought this was quite funny. Mansa Musa actually refused to bow to the Sultan. And then he did, but he said he was only bowing before God alone. And so it was a pretty awkward beginning, but they grew close because gold tends to
make relationships.
Yes.
Money makes the world go round when it has stuff behind it.
Yeah. Now, it's said that he gained so much admiration and respect among the people of Egypt due to his enormous generosity and his vast wealth. He spent lavishly while traveling through the country for approximately 3 months. He kind of was around commissioning construction of mosques and schools and other public works. He was said to have brought with him a large amount of scholars and intellectuals who actually helped spread knowledge and learning in Egypt. So big deal. But much of what is known today about Mansa Musa actually comes from Egyptian historians and their teachings after befriending the ruler during this pilgrimage. So
interesting.
Contextual information there. For sure.
Yeah, Egypt was really good at keeping records. A lot of history that we know of is because of their records.
Oh, well, unfortunately, the library
and the
of
Catholic
Alexandria
Catholic Church
being burnt to the ground is like the most devastating thing I can think of.
There were a lot of secrets in there.
Yeah. Controversy is never far, though. Musa's gift giving to the Egyptian people did not go unpunished because no good deed ever does. Historians have cited his appearance in the region and his generosity as the reason the value of gold depreciated in Egypt at the time, not recovering from economic collapse for 12 years after his visit.
Planned. It was planned.
You think that was planned?
He planned it.
That's
he planned
very
it. Do you want to know why?
Of you.
1300 CE. Okay. Long time ago. I can have my opinions. I think it was planned. That makes total sense. You know what they can't, you know what countries can't do when they're bankrupt?
What?
Wage war. Go and conquer.
Well,
you can't do those things.
Some historians have argued that this was just normal, inflation period of time, and the value of gold would depreciate and go up and down. But inflation's a hot topic these days, so I thought I'd mention it. Very interesting. But on October 18th, Mansa Musa and his entourage did leave Egypt, and they continued to make their way to Mecca. Once arriving, the 12,000 strong group at the time, Wait, it
went from 60,000 to 12,000?
I think they dropped people off,
I was
they were you know what I mean? Like, you have a bunch of people and they were dispersing through towns, and some people are like, F this, probably go home.
We lost 48,000 men.
Let me say it this way. This giant group of people with Mansa Musa
slightly down to a less giant group of people.
They visited many holy sites in the city, and at one point some of his group and a group of Turkic pilgrims to Mecca were about to fight because, people fight, and they had their swords drawn and everything, but demonstrating his leadership skills, Mansa Musa calmed down.
Well, you know what he did? He showed up
guys.
And he was like, guys, we don't need to fight here. Here's $15 million in gold.
Chill.
This is about a quarter ton. Here, you can have it. We don't need it.
Well, he was establishing many trade routes along the way, diplomatic ties, increased the wealth and power of the Mali Empire. So not only was he going through with his pilgrimage to Mecca as part of his Islamic faith and one of the 5 pillars, he also was like, we might as well make this a business trip as well. Okay, we're going to expenditure all that stuff we bought in Egypt, and we're going to establish some diplomatic ties with whoever else is here on a pilgrimage. You know what I mean? It's like when you go on vacation, you're like, let's have a business talk and write this off. That is not tax advice, and I've never done that before.
What in God's name? We're definitely never ever. We're keeping that in.
No.
You know what? You know what's funny? I'm getting some weird vibes from this guy. I like him.
Really?
I like him. But
I really like him.
He reminds me of Kanye West for some reason. For
what?
some reason, I'm getting Kanye vibes
What?
before Kanye went crazy. Like I'm talking like he just does whatever he wants. That's what it seems like. He literally just does whatever he wants.
Well, it was time to go home.
What did you do this summer, Mansa Musa? Well, I decided to bankrupt the entire country of Egypt. And then on my way to Mecca, I nearly got into a fight, but thank God I had at least 7 tons of gold still in remaining coffers that I had carried by my friends and family of 12,000. And we gave them some of that gold, and then we avoided the fight, and now I'm on my way back from my pilgrimage in which I just basically corrupted the world with the amount of wealth I had.
His legacy goes on. So despite the inflationary period of Egypt for 12 years.
The inflationary decisions. Yeah.
I bet you those individual people who
They
maybe
were
said,
so happy when they couldn't get food.
they were like,
I
get
have
food
all
today.
this gold, but I have none of this food. Yay!
But the return to Mali was challenging. It wasn't as, honky-dory as one would say.
It wasn't hunky-dory the first time.
Yeah.
They went 2,700 miles across the desert.
Now, much of the Malayan pilgrims were suffering of starvation at this point.
Oh my God.
That's not funny. Why are we laughing?
Because this is gone. This has been, honestly, this is emotionally traumatic is what this is. If you think about it in the context of actual history, 60,000 people left the Malian Empire with 18.5 tons of gold on top of whatever else they had. All the other stuff they had to carry. Then they get to Mecca, and their numbers have dwindled down to 12,000. And now they have to go back 3,000 miles.
Well, they also were cold, and they had lots of raids. Again, bandits. By the time they reached Suez, which
There's a canal there.
There's a canal there. That's right. Musa had to borrow money and resell much of what they had bought initially while traveling through Cairo, and he began to rack up some debt. But the Sultan of Egypt was equally as generous as Musa was, and in return, he began to shower Mansa Musa with gifts, just as he had done to the Sultan when first passing through. And just like it's been in all of time, money and friends.
Wait a second. So this
They
is
go
I
hand in
see
hand.
I see what the problem is. Musa decides to go on this trip, bring all this gold, bankrupt all these small cities, small cities. Said something else. Small cities and towns. and then he loses all of his money, but then he goes back to Egypt, and then the Sultan of Egypt gives him more gold. It's not Musa's fault anymore.
Well, you know what? When you got friends in high places, you can get through just anything, okay?
Friends in high places. Here's some gold. Oh.
But after returning from his pilgrimage finally to the Mali Empire, Mansa Musa, he continued to expand and build new mosques, more schools, promoting Islamic scholarship and culture. He commissioned the construction of the famous Jinjubir Mosque in Timbuktu, and became a center of scholarship in the region and learning. And he brought back with him several Muslim scholars from Mecca, architects and religious leaders who actually helped establish a more organized and centralized Islamic structure in the kingdom. And additionally, he commissioned a new building, or new buildings and roads, and it was just infrastructure, it was great.
The entire thing. I'm telling you, he planned the entire thing. He did this whole thing, came back and was like, you know what, guys, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go on this awesome trip. Okay, it's gonna be a really fun summer. Hot boy summer. We're gonna go across the
Mansa Musa did a hot boy summer pilgrimage to
2,700 miles to Mecca. We're gonna bankrupt everyone along the way. We're gonna barely make it back with our lives. thousands of you may die. In fact, all of you may die. I will be the only one that's going to survive because you have to die for me if I tell you to. With that being said, I'm going to get back and then I'm going to build all these roads.
And no one's going to bother us because they're all bankrupt.
No one's going to stop us because we're bankrupt. Oh, who owns these roads? Mansa Musa. You don't because I have inflated your country into fiscal hell.
It's kind of genius.
It is.
If that's the case.
That is genius.
Your speculation has gone noted.
He is a genius.
But he also introduced new agricultural techniques, such as the construction of irrigation canals.
And he had all the money to do that.
Which increased the agricultural output of the kingdom and improved the standard of living of many Malayans. Is that how you say that? Malayans, excuse me. Yeah.
Malayans is like a group of lions that are yours.
Sorry. For many living in the Malay Empire at the time.
What's that sound in the backyard? All that roaring. Oh, that's my lions.
It's my lions. Sorry. Malayans. Now, Mansa Musa, he actually died. He didn't live forever. The way I said that was so valley girl. He actually died.
Yo, bro.
Oh my gosh.
What's up, dude?
I'm sorry, a little self.
He actually died, bro.
Humor.
Anyway, he died.
He did die. He died in 1337, and he was succeeded by his son. The exact circumstances of his death are not entirely clear.
So he took 2,000 ships across.
No, yeah. He too did the 2,000 ships. No. There are various accounts of how he passed away. But in 1337, there was what seems to be a legitimate date of death. So 1337 is what we're going to go with.
So that's when he died. That was his date of death.
Yeah, right.
1337.
He would have ruled Mali for about 25 years in total. And according to some sources, he died on his return journey from a visit to the city of Timbuktu, which is where he would have gone to inspect the progress of the new mosque that he had commissioned. Other sources suggest that he died in Niani, which was the capital of the Mali Empire, where it's also said that he was buried there. And there's also various accounts of exactly what caused his death. Some say he died of natural causes. Some suggest he may have been assassinated or poisoned, as, you know, is always a risk when you are a ruler with $1 billion on a caravan going across the desert. You never know what's going to happen, I guess. But there's no definitive explanation or evidence to support any of those claims. So
wait, so we don't know, so we can speculate.
We can. Don't you dare! You get so excited. You're like, I can speculate.
He went back to Mecca again, but this time he wanted to stop in Timbuktu, so a little bit out of the way. He brought 36 tons of gold with him this time. One of the wheels on the gold carriage broke. He had to go out back with some of his friends, replace the wheel. Unfortunately, the wheel, which was also made of gold, fell.
Okay. And then he fell too, or what?
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's very haunting.
Cliffhanger.
Haunting.
We don't know what happened after that.
Write your own ending.
That's why I loved those books as a kid, man.
No.
They don't have the kids don't know these days. They don't know.
No,
those books were wonderful.
Those and Mad Libs.
Yeah. There was one, I can't remember which book it was, but it was like a spooky horror book, and it was like one of those like pick your own endings, and
yeah.
I cheated. I read like a few of them, and then I was like, which one's the right ending where I live? Yeah. Because I read the entire book.
Nice.
Yeah. Literally just actually what I did is I went from page 1 all the way through. I didn't go from page 1 to 15 like you're supposed to, all the way through. So it was very confusing at first.
I see.
Joking. I didn't do that. With that being said,
okay.
Back to the wheel falling.
Mansa Musa's legacy lives on today, not just in the history of the golden age of the Mali Empire, but also in the impact of his pilgrimage and the spread of Islam in West Africa and his contribution to the region's cultural and intellectual development. He is, however, not without his criticisms. Some have accused him of being irresponsible with Mali's wealth and unfaithful to tradition.
What are they talking about?
You know.
What do you mean? Are you telling me that it might have been irresponsible to go on a year-long fiasco across the Saharan desert all the way through northern Africa to Mecca while taking 18.5 tons, I don't know why it's 0.5, maybe just round up to 19 tons of gold, giving away all the gold to everyone.
Well, here's the thing. If you go by your personal brand of conspiracy, it was
genius.
On purpose. And it was genius because he got to work on the infrastructure.
But if this guy was like, I don't know. What's a good comparison? I can't even think of a good comparison. I can't use Mr. West. That's just insulting. And that was a joke that was a Sultan joke.
Gotcha.
With that being said, that's some highbrow pun. I don't even know a good comparison, but yeah, obviously it's not very intelligent to take a bunch of gold everywhere with you.
Well, I mean, he got to Mecca. He made a lot of trade routes and diplomatic partnerships along the way.
He obviously spent all the gold.
A lot of it. Well, here's the thing. Reports of his wealth and generosity have withstood the test of time. Obviously, the richest person of all time classification was actually popularized by an article from Celebrity Net Worth.
That sounds credible.
Not exactly the most credible site.
That sounds incredibly
Who knows?
credible.
I mean, I don't know. They actually translated it to today about $400 billion was his net worth, is what they're saying.
How would they know that?
Well, the reality...
Wait a second. Genuine question. How would Celebrity Net Worth know that?
Well, yeah, exactly.
How would you know?
That's where he got popularized for that time. But here's the thing. The reality is...
We don't know where he's buried. That's the reality.
Most Arabic scholars and historians state it's just nearly impossible to actually accurately estimate how much money this guy
Who made up that number?
Yeah. So exactly. The true net worth we'll probably never know. He had a lot of money. He had a lot of gold. If you consider money gold. Yeah.
You know what I believe? I am one of the workers at Celebrity Net Worth. I believe that we actually can correctly indicate the actual value that Jesus Christ had when he was alive. We've done the calculations, and it seems to be that he had a net worth of right around
He balanced his checkbooks?
Well, he did. He had about $1.4 million saved up in his Roth IRA.
Oh, it's because he had frankincense and myrrh given him as a baby, right?
Well, the problem was Judas tried to screw him over with a higher interest rate, and unfortunately, Judas took that personally, and then Judas got mad. You know how it went. But after that,
his APR was ridiculous.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the house market was about to collapse at that point. How do you determine? Honestly, this makes me see. Here's the thing. This is why we do this show, and I know that we're not historians, okay? And people will probably look at us and be like, "You guys do more harm than good." Maybe we do. Maybe we are causing as much problems.
I didn't know anything about this guy.
Maybe my stories are causing as much problems as Celebrity Net Worth determining that Mansa Musa had $400 billion, which, how much did the Mali Empire have?
Well, here's the thing. That's the point. It's almost impossible
you don't know.
Separate his personal wealth
from the Mali Empire.
From the monarch of which he was, and the empire, the actual wealth of the empire, right?
Yeah.
So the richest man who ever lived is a nice title, and we're going to use it in our podcast. But we don't really know that.
Well, it's not like we can track it like today, where we can look at
a lot of gold.
It's not like we can track it today, where we can look at like modern politicians and be like, "Oh, you made X amount of dollars, and now you're worth $500 million."
Well, you know, those
it's not
celebrity estimates of net worth are always wrong.
It's gotta be made up.
Yeah.
I want to meet that guy. I want to meet that Celebrity Net Worth adjuster who works at Celebrity Net Worth.
Well, here's the thing. It's actually believed that these rumors of his extreme wealth were actually perpetuated by Mansa Musa himself.
Oh.
That he may have spread rumors around that gold grew like a plant in his kingdom, which we know gold doesn't grow like a plant.
It does.
But regardless of that, he was an extremely wealthy and generous man. That much we do know. And he remains a significant figure of West African history and continues to be remembered for his wealth, his piety, and his patronage of the arts and Islamic culture. And that right there is Mr. Mansa Musa.
You know, I have to say I've rated almost all of our characters, almost all of them, in very accurate and easy to understand rating scales at the end of every episode. And I have to say with a very high level of responsibility and decorum, that if I had to rate Mansa Musa between Bill Gates.
We didn't do Bill Gates. He's still alive.
I'm using metrics that are
okay, sure. Yeah.
Understandable. If I had to compare him to today on my scale of very wealthy individuals, I'll keep Bill Gates. Bill Gates being one I'm not a huge fan of, and then
isn't Elon Musk the richest person in the
world? I don't want to use Elon Musk because you can't compare.
You mentioned him earlier.
The Doge King. Fine, the Doge King. Yeah, I would say Mansa's like an 8. I give him an 8 out of 10.
I think your conspiracy theory is quite interesting.
I think it's right. I think it makes sense.
He was both generous and calculated. He said, not only am I giving to the poor, but I'm also bankrupting their governments.
No, he's also he's bankrupting those countries. And think about it this way. If you give a bunch of people who have nothing something, and then give a bunch of people who have something nothing, what happens?
Yeah.
That's the whole argument against some certain things because of that. You give a bunch of people a ton of money for no reason, the economy is going to take a giant doo-doo.
Well, we're not having...
No, we're not having the conversation.
I guess a money
I'm just saying that I
podcast.
think that's what he did. I think it was an international espionage mission is what I think.
So
and then
he was
tied
a
it
spy
in. Yes.
in the Malian Empire. Let's just call him Mansa Musa, ruler of the Mali Empire and undercover spy.
Yeah, I liked it. I think he was really cool. And hopefully our viewers and listeners liked him as well. I mean, criticisms wise, that I haven't given rulers of countries prior to...
I think he's cool.
He's cool, but he probably murdered a lot. With that being said, that's what they all do. So that's the purpose of the show. And
Every ruler we've mentioned has
murdered.
almost all of them. One of them, one I think who hasn't is Catherine the Great, but she may have.
No, she murdered.
Maybe.
She murdered.
Sorry, Catherine.
She did more espionage than we think. But yeah, if you happen to like this show, it would be wonderful if you could give a subscription. If you happen to like it. If you didn't happen to like it, no worries. With that being said, what I can say is the reason that we do this show is to give some insight into these particular leaders that may have impacted our history that we live today and the history of the past without looking at them with some level of rose-colored lens.
Yeah.
So even though I did like Mansa, I don't like everybody. So he's a rare one.
Yeah, you're usually a lot harsher. I'm kind of impressed.
There's really not much for me to criticize outside of the murder and maybe the irresponsibility of 18 tons of gold being dragged across the Saharan
He's
desert.
also one of these characters where, unfortunately, there's just so much of his life that we don't know about.
God, what would be the insurance? What would be the insurance of
I don't
the
know if he
carriage?
had an insurance policy taken
Yeah,
out.
but if it did,
all
like
those
18 tons of gold, God,
camels.
the insurance policy would have been insanity.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we'll leave you with that. We are excited for our next episode, which is going to be all about...
We'll let them figure it out. That's
you
what it'll be
soon.
about. Bye, guys.